On the Security Weekly News, I try to scan and produce a quick look at some of the major stories to help you keep up with what's going on in and around the industry in a short format. Myself, Aaron Layla, and Josh Marpet, and other guest commentators provide greater insight every week. I'm Doug White, and I hope that you'll look for the Security Weekly News in all of your favorite podcast catchers and subscribe for the latest content.
Welcome back to Identiverse 2024. We are streaming all of these interviews live from Las Vegas. Very excited to be here to learn about the topic and the leaders of identity. With me, I have a leader with us who is Tim Prendergast, CEO of Strong DM. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing great. I'm always excited to learn from my leaders in the identity space. It's a blessing to be here at Identiverse and also speak to you. I wanted to, start it off with, learning more about you. Right before we hit record on this session, you were saying, hey, my company is Strong DM. I'm not one of the co-founders. I'm the CEO. I'm, helping take this to the next level. What was your introduction to Strong DM and what do you all do?
Oh, well, in the world, it's often who you know and how you meet them, right?
Yeah.
So I met the founders of Strong DM as a sister portfolio company to my startup that was called Evident.io. They were both True Ventures companies. Shout out to True Ventures, great investment firm. And they build strong founder relationships. So I got to meet the founders of Strong DM and support them on their journey. And when my journey ended and I was ready to do something new, They were very gracious in inviting me in and letting me kind of help them take this to the next level. And I think that's been a fantastic experience, and I couldn't have asked for better people to work with.
That is amazing. I love stories like that because you never know who you're going to meet, especially putting the work in. I used to work at Palo Alto Network, so I know about Evident. Yeah. I know that the community, the cybersecurity community, technology community really invested in that. Yep. But it sounds like, you have a group of people that are investing in you. Yeah. So, let's talk a little bit about Strong DM. Like, who are you all serving? Where are the roles and titles that you all typically cater to?
Yeah, so Strong DM is a zero trust PAM. So we're actually targeting identity professionals and security professionals, helping them remove the risk of credentials from end user interactions in privileged ways, and helping them also get better visibility into how people use the infrastructure that powers their business.
Love that. Short, sweet, concise, easy to understand. Let's take a look at access management. I'm sure that that's one of your key areas of focus. And also, like you just said, zero trust. What is the current state of access management and zero trust?
I think access management in the industry has kind of been often overlooked by probably far sexier topics like AI and ML this, but really access management is one of the core foundations of a good security program. How people work with the resources you provide for them to build better outcomes for your customers is really critical for security professionals, because giving privilege to users means good things can happen, but bad things can happen also. Credentials can be stolen, as we learned in the Verizon DBIR report this year, as the primary source of breaches, right? And so being able to know who should get access to what and what they should be able to do with that access is really critical. But extending on that, sometimes I give you a house key to come over and water plants in my house. I don't expect you to go drink all the beer in the fridge and smash my TV, right? I just want you to water the plants. But access historically has been, once you've got access, you've got wide open access and there's no further control. And Strong DM's actually taken a lot of actions to help protect what privileged users can do and control it once you give them that house key.
When I look at concepts like zero trust and access management, I often think, coming in from an outsider to an organization, being a new person, who should have access? How do you help your organizations and customers understand, how to think about zero trust, especially if they aren't necessarily too familiar with the culture and the history of the company?
Well, I think first you set the ground rules. And the ground rules of the world we live in is everyone is increasingly technical in their job. Whether you're in marketing, whether you're in sales, whether you're an engineer writing code, you're using technology to do your job, and AI is only going to drive that to accelerate. So you need to think long and hard about how I provision and provide access to people to do their job, but don't give them too much so that they could get in trouble with it, right? Mm-hmm. If you've not gone on zero trust journeys at all, it all starts with an identity provider, which is why we're all here at Identiverse. So you know who's working at your organization or what identities are active. And then you move down the chain of how do I authenticate them? How do I authorize them? And then how do I control them once they're authorized so I can either revoke or challenge that authorization at any point in time should the environmental conditions around us change. You go out to the beach, you bring an umbrella, you bring a towel, but it might rain, so you probably bring some extra protections for that. It's the same thing in security. You have to plan for all eventualities because they're bound to happen.
Yeah, they are bound to happen. It's unfortunate, but I think, being prepared is important. Having strong partners like Strong DM is critical. And, when you look at the current state of identity and access management and being here at Identiverse, What are you hoping to get out of this event? And also, what kind of influence are you hoping to leave behind?
So I think the influence we want to leave behind is obvious. We want to show people there's a better way to approach the topic of PAM, and there's a new category coming that will replace legacy PAM, right? It extends all the way to, can you control the actions people are doing once they're authenticated and once they're authorized, and can you measure and report on that for compliance reasons and security reasons, right?
Right.
And that influence is already resonating on the floor. We've had a ton of great conversations, and customers are looking at it and saying, hey, you opened my eyes that PAM is much more than just authentication or vaulting a credential. And it's true, the industry's moved past it because technology is accelerating. We have 3 kinds, 4 kinds, 5 kinds of clouds. We have multiple kinds of Kubernetes environments. Like, it's just crazy how far we've come in 10 years. And I think the next 10 years will accelerate at twice the clip we've seen, which means having a flexible platform that solves these problems in a really ingenious way is foundational to having a successful security program as we go forward.
When I've spent time being an architect at financial institutions, I've had my mind blown because I hear about all of these different technologies that have been adopted, the importance of them staying running because it's servicing customers, and just the complexity of environments has really changed, has grown. It's hard to manage.
Yep.
How do you help people think about cloud environments, the next generation of environments, ephemeral environments, to break it down in smaller chunks that are manageable?
Look, I think the cloud providers did a great job giving you programmatic identity, meaning you can activate the APIs and create tokens and stand up identities and API keys and then tear them down. But a lot of people don't get that far. A lot of people are still embracing the cloud journey and starting out and adopting those concepts.
Yeah.
And so they're bringing some of the legacy concepts with them into those environments. So the first thing is to help them expand their horizons to understand there's different ways to approach it. And sometimes there's a way to unify both strategies together into something new overall. So you kind of clean up the legacy mess. You can embrace the new fun stuff that you get in the cloud, and you can have a more successful outcome in the long run. But at the same time, the ephemerality is technically new. Like, one day you wake up, you have 500 servers in your data center, and the next day you wake up and there's 2, like, you've been robbed. But in the cloud, that's a normal eventuality by the minute, every minute for most organizations. So having a platform that can actually flex and scale with those elastic events, those ephemeral systems, gives people the ability to access things just in time when they need it and when they exist, and then contain and maintain the audit trail for something that may have only been in existence for a minute and used, right? Sometimes those security events disappear because we can't offload the logs fast enough, but because of the position Zero Trust PAM has in the market, you can actually capture live in flight the protocols and the sessions as they're happening, record them, and keep that evidence that something did exist and something was done, even though it happened almost in a second.
So that's a lot of information, especially looking at things like containers. We're spinning down containers all the time. How do you all make sense of all that information that's being shared with your solution?
It's the power of big data. I love when we come back to topics that are old and new again. It really is a computer science problem. How do I slice, dice, and analyze large data sets and then take a real-time approach to reporting on them, right? So it comes down to statistical analysis. You have to do some kind of bucketing of risk scoring. Then you bubble up the really key events to people to look at, and the rest of the stuff you kind of categorize as these are interesting but maybe not human relevant or immediately necessary to review, and you scale that approach up. We process billions of events a month, actually billions of sessions a month. There's tons more events, but that gives us a head start on everyone else from a SaaS platform state to understand and contemplate what happens in big data sets, what happens across segments of customers and segments of privileged users, and then drive those insights back to other customers to help them improve their operations.
I could tell you what I would do if I was in your situation. I would copy all that data, try to paste it into ChatGPT, tell me make sense out of it all. But I know that you're not doing that. You have experts behind your solutions and behind what you're building. But are you using AI to help make sense of this data now that it's available for you?
So we have a strong data privacy agreement with our customers, so we don't import any of our data into ChatGPT, but we do work on using models to analyze non-identifiable information and platform information to help us drive better operations and better outcomes for our customers. I also personally use ChatGPT to keep LinkedIn very entertaining, so it's a small plug for following me on LinkedIn if you want to see some cool images. But the AI tools are going to get better and better, and they're going to understand more things. And I talked about that middle layer of maybe not human relevant data sets and information. Those are going to be things that are highly probable that AI will analyze and give you summaries on and help humans and maybe find signal in that noise, because no one can go watch millions of container interactions as they're coming up and down over time. And we're going to need to leverage technology that really drives some sense out of all that data that otherwise would be thrown away or considered noise.
One aspect that I've been hearing over and over again at Identiverse so far is the attacker, the adversary, is starting to use AI, and they're going to start using AI to generate more events, to generate more sessions. So what are your thoughts on, protecting against the threat of adversaries using AI?
Look, I think it's funny that you see stories about people using fake avatars to defraud companies. It comes back to the same principles Identiverse was founded on. You have to authenticate somebody. You have to authorize what you're willing to let them do, including if they're asking you to transfer money or do something else, right? And you have to strongly validate. So very much zero trusty principles. Don't trust your eyes,
Right.
trust the data you can gather on a situation, and then make the best decision possible based on that, right? So challenge everything. Don't believe everything. It's probably the same guidance you give a child going on the internet for the first time. But it's increasingly relevant for the world we live in. And I think AI is going to make script kiddies hot again. And if you remember the old days, the kids that could just run scripts to attack websites, it's the new script kiddie. You can go say, hey, ChatGPT, come up with an exploit for this thing, and it'll help you do that. And really, we have to come up with some unique ways to prevent that from happening. And it always starts with access. If you can keep them out of systems and they can't even see the systems, they can't gain privilege on the systems, then you don't have anything really to worry about. You have the human element to always worry about. But hopefully we get good at asking questions, and we use pineapple as a secret keyword. Don't use that. But something to help us authenticate each other live on Zoom when we see each other. Yeah. Admin, yes.
Exactly. Kicking it old school. So when you, looking at Identiverse and having an opportunity to really influence the future, like we were speaking about, what are you hoping to see out of identity in this next wave of solutions, opportunities, and overcoming the challenges?
Yeah, look, I think identity is the center basis of the next generation of security for everything. And we're going to use it as the core foundation with a lot of rich context we draw from peer and partner products, other security technologies, and other things we can gather from the signal and brand of your mobile phone and the chip inside of it, to your biometrics, to, as silly as it sounds, MFA and TOTP, which everyone will groan at, but getting as much data as we can to build the best picture we can about you and the actions you want to take and the historical and predicted actions you'll take, and use that to judge whether or not we permit something. That's really the future identity is going to be going to. And I think ultimately for us, it's a convergence of a lot of the technologies you'll see here. So everyone's going to get smarter about how we do multiple things, because we're all trying to solve problems that appear in our everyday lives. We've had enough of our healthcare information being leaked. We've had enough of our PII being leaked. And really, the better solutions we make, the more we stop those kinds of attacks from happening, and the more that we get better consumer and commercial products for our day-to-day lives.
So there may be someone tuned into the stream that wants to get one step better at this world of identity and access management, especially the access management part. For anyone that, is trying to, clean up their hygiene a bit, what would be your one piece of advice for them to be one step stronger and better at access management?
I think the answer comes back to John Kinderbog nailed it 12, 13 years ago with zero trust. Now the question is, how do you operationalize it? What does your unique journey for your organization look like? It starts with getting an identity provider. I think we're all there 10 years into this. Now the next question is, how do I leverage identity into who can do what in my organization? And that's where companies like StrongDM and a lot of other people you're going to see on the floor can really help you. And I think we're all here to not only guide you on their journey and show you good examples of other organizations that have done it, the thought leaders, but also help you do it with technology so you don't feel like you're going it alone, having to build it all yourself or deal with legacy solutions to do it. You can get something modern that meets your modern stack where it lives and meets your users in a place where they can use it, they can love it. They don't feel like you're making them do the 7 labors of Hercules just to do their job.
I would strongly recommend everyone to check out StrongDM. If you want to learn more, be sure to check out securityweekly.com/StrongDM. That's StrongDMIDV. Be sure to check them out and also stay up to date with Tim. Tim, I appreciate you spending a few minutes with us, letting us ask you about your company and your role in the space of identity. And with that, we will see everyone very soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome back to Identiverse 2024. This is completely live. We're bringing you all these interviews live, and we have a special interview with us right now. My guest for this interview is Damon Topkins, Chief Revenue Officer at Pathlock. Damon, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Great to have you. I'm always excited to speak to chief revenue officers because they generate money. They generate revenue. You wish that money can grow on trees. They grow on CROs. So tell me a little bit about, your roles and responsibilities at Pathlock. What does a CRO do at a cybersecurity vendor?
Sure. So a CRO is focused really on that sort of initial spark of who's Pathlock and why is this relevant to me, all the way through the journey of I'm a Pathlock customer and I'm extremely happy and I've adopted the product and I feel a great degree of success. And so when you think about that totality of that journey from the spark of consciousness to satisfaction, that fence post to fence post is really where all my time and energy is focused.
I would imagine that you all are focused on identity. We're out here at Identiverse.
You bet.
Tell me a little bit about your company, Pathlock.
Sure. So Pathlock is focused on building solutions around helping organizations manage identity at the application layer and mitigating risk across your most sensitive applications that handle your favorite thing and my favorite thing, money.
Yeah.
So there's a distinct class of applications that organizations have, typically referred to as ERP applications. And that's where financially sensitive transactions take place. And what Pathlock does is we build security solutions that allow organizations to better govern, control, and understand what's taking place on those systems through the roles and entitlements of the users of those systems and the processes that unfold on them as well.
Important stuff. We're talking about money here, like you said.
That's right.
But I think it goes beyond just that, right? Because not only, is money important, does it help us, survive and thrive in this world, but access to our financial technologies also enable us to loan money to friends and family, to probably, looking at this space of identity access management, there's other use cases like healthcare,
Sure.
like, many other things like even home care. So which organizations are you mainly working with at Pathlock? Is it financial technologies or, industries across the board?
Industries across the board. And so we tend to gravitate towards organizations that have several thousand employees that are using various applications that they're facilitating their day-to-day operations on. But it's not wed to any particular vertical. The issues that we solve are fairly ubiquitous across all industries. And your point's a good one in that it's not exclusively about money. There's critical access and risk associated with being able to see sensitive information that's not necessarily financial driven. It could be trade secrets, proprietary information about personally identifiable information. So money tends to be at the center of most of ERP systems, but there are definitely other data sets that require greater degrees of governance on them.
If you look up Pathlock, you're bound to see this term called IGA. And I was excited to bring it up because I was like,
Yeah.
perfect. I'm here to learn. That's why I'm here at Identiverse and speak to leaders like yourself. So how would you explain what IGA is?
Yeah, IGA stands for Identity Governance and Administration. It's a broad category of software products that help organizations better govern their applications and their data sets through the use of roles and entitlements on those applications. So, hi, my name's Damon. I work in accounts receivable or engineering. And as a result of that, I have certain entitlements based upon the role that I'm given in an application. This allows me to do different behaviors on systems, and those behaviors need to be governed. And so there's a broad class of applications called IGA products, and that's what they seek to do. And we're a specialization underneath that category.
And how would you describe that specialization exactly?
So we're focused on what's called application access governance. So when you look at the most important and critical applications in your app catalog, we're looking at the very most fine-grained capabilities that any individual has on that system. So you might join an organization on a Monday and you're cast into roles that allow you to do certain things. But you might need to look at those roles at a much finer level. So an example, I'll give you an analogy. Identity governance might be, are you allowed into the house? Can you open the front door? If you can open the front door, you're allowed to go in the kitchen. If you go into the kitchen, can you use the teapot? Can you turn the teapot up to the highest setting within it? So there's different levels of access and administration that you have to have. Think about that at an application layer. Do I have access to my SAP system? Do I have access to my Oracle EBS or JD Edwards system? If I do I have the ability to access accounts receivable or accounts payable? If I do, can I post to the general ledger? Can I add a vendor? Can I pay a vendor? And so there are very specific entitlements that organizations have to be mindful of when they're thinking about governing what people can do on their systems. And that's where we're focused.
I love that. I mean, getting fine-tuned, like, servicing a general category, but also having that specialization on top. I would imagine that you all brought the specialization in because other solutions weren't servicing a need. You found a gap.
That's right.
So how would you describe, the current state of where we're at with IGA?
Yep. Good, great question. So, it's interesting. I get to participate in events like this that are focused on Office of the CIO and CISO. Sometimes I get to go to events that are app specific, like SAP specific events. And sometimes I go to events that are under the moniker of governance, risk, and compliance. And all three of these events, you'll have different groups of folks who are talking fundamentally about the same problem, but almost in completely different term sets. And so what I see in the world of the Office of the CIO and the CISO, an event like Identiverse, is lots of great innovation going on at the network layer. So do people have the ability to authenticate onto a system? Have you validated that? Have you done SSO or two-factor? But what you don't hear if you go around and visit with the vendors in the expo hall is any dialogue about whether or not people have certain rights and entitlements at the application layer. I read a stat on my way here that was that 87% of all financial transactions, business to business financial transactions, will pass through an SAP ERP system at some point, represents some astronomical amount of money, like $47 trillion. And if you go around, you ask probably all the vendors on the floor what they do in terms of governing risk and identity for SAP. Very few of them would have any answer for that. They wouldn't have any focus on that. It's almost a complete greenfield in terms of vendors in this landscape. And so we saw that as a huge market opportunity that there was very little innovation taking place on, and that's where we're squarely focused.
Wow. I could see the possibilities, for your organization. I could see the impact that not having something like this could bring on. When you look at the use cases that CIOs, CISOs are most excited to tackle first, working with your company, what is that? What are those use cases?
So the use cases that we see a lot is that in regulated industries, there are three distinct groups of folks that are stakeholders in what we're doing. So you have chief information officers and by extension, chief information security officers who really bear the brunt of the responsibility to produce the systems and the analytics and the information to support the next important group, which are IT auditors, as well as internal controls. And then there's the app owner themselves. Now, on the IT controls and audit side, they typically report up to the office of the CFO. And a lot of this is driven out of compliancy for like SOX 404 regulations. So if you're a publicly traded company, somebody at your company has to sign the financials. And those financials state that you have controls in place to ensure that people are not committing waste, fraud, or abuse on your systems. In order to facilitate understanding those entitlements, you have to serve up those requirements to IT, to CIOs and CISOs. And so what happens for us is that we're seeing use cases where people want to understand things like separation of duty, critical access reviews, fine-grained entitlements. If this person can add a vendor and they can pay a vendor, they might need that entitlement, but should they have added a vendor on Saturday afternoon? And what if the vendor's in Brazil and we don't do business in Brazil? That seems odd. And so now you have to get down into very detailed transactional level risk. And so those are the kinds of use cases that we're seeing more and more organizations grappling with very little tooling or solutions in the area.
That stuff is scary. When you think about the CISO and the CIO now, they're clutching their pearls. The SEC said, we're not playing these games.
That's it. People go to jail now.
They go to jail. They have serious lawyer fees that someone has to pay the bill on. So I would imagine that when organizations see your solutions, they think peace of mind. I can sign this thing and feel confident in my decision.
Yeah, it's twofold. So we mitigate risk. We help organizations reduce authentic risk associated with their systems. And we also help people save time and money because the way that they achieve these outcomes today is through manual processes. So you have a group of people within your organization called internal controls and IT audit, as well as the time of the folks in your IT team who are performing manual tasks to find this information, to figure out whether it's a false positive. And we reduce all of that. We automate it away. We save you time and money on your audit, reducing outside consulting fees for folks to come in and manually go through these processes. And so it's really it's a twofold message. It's risk mitigation and automation to save money and time.
When you look at Identiverse, you think of the long lineage that it has had. Like it's been around for quite some time. And that's impact, bringing people together, bringing ideas, and looking at the impact it's brought to you by the attendees and organizations like Pathlock. So looking into the future, what kind of impact are the founders and even you hoping to leave with Pathlock?
Well, I think we want to leave a lasting legacy of understanding risk mitigation at all levels and being able to bring about change in terms of how organizations interact with sensitive data sets and mitigate risk for their customers, for their shareholders, and for their employees. And I think collectively, when you look at sort of all the different innovation that's taking place across the board, it's really exciting time in the world of identity security. I think almost a golden age, if you will.
Yeah.
It's funny, we've been talking about these issues for 20, 25 years. I've been involved in this, but there's more innovation and more enthusiasm about this topic today than there's ever been. And I suspect it's only going to continue to grow.
For sure. It seems like identity is having a glow up, and we're now hoping to use identity in the way that, I think some of the visionaries saw it years and years ago when Active Directory was exclusively identity.
That's it.
What are you most excited about looking at the rest of the event and conference for you? What are you hoping to see and experience, or who are you hoping to speak to?
Well, having great conversations, not only with potential customers and existing customers, but partnerships. So there's a lot of 1 + 1 = 3 in both the technology as well as in the service delivery area. So we're having great conversations with the systems integrator ecosystems and the value-added resellers who truly are adding value in terms of the service delivery. And then there's a lot of opportunity to combine forces with other products. There's a number of traditional IGA players, if you want to refer to it that way. Great companies doing really exciting, innovative things that we can connect to those systems and accentuate what they're doing. And so hoping to have more conversations with some of the sort of technical alliances, as well as more customer conversations. Got to get that money.
You got to. And, there's some people that are tuning in live that weren't able to be here and experience and also speak to yourself, see how Pathlock can help their organization. We would love for you to check out Pathlock and learn more about what they're doing by visiting securityweekly.com/Pathlock IDV. That's PATHLOCK Damon, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me, letting me, ask you some questions about Pathlock and also IGA. Hope to speak to you soon. Highly recommend anyone to check you out online. Also check out Pathlock. And with that, we will see everyone on the next one.
Hello, I'm Paul Wagenseal from Cyber Risk Alliance, and we're here at the Identiverse conference at the ARIA in Las Vegas. I'm here with Andrew Budd, who's a founder and CEO of iProve, and we're going to be talking about the threat of deepfakes to remote identity verification systems. Now, Andrew, tell me a bit about iProve.
So iProve provides biometric face identification and verification for onboarding and ongoing authentication, and in particular, we're the world's leading provider of liveness. You might call what we do biometrics as a service. What makes us the world leader? We serve governments, the United States government, British government, Australian government, Singapore governments worldwide, major banks like UBS, healthcare providers like the National Health Service in the UK. We provide to major enterprises who are the most discerning and demanding in the world, the services of liveness that keep biometrics usable and very, very safe. We're about 200 people. We're based in London. We've been going over 10 years. And in 2021, we received $70 million of Series B investment from Sumeria Equity Partners in San Francisco.
Now, a remote identity verification system, what exactly is that?
So if we're talking about digital identity is ultimately a set of facts about you. But trust in the internet and trust in online systems doesn't reside in facts, it resides in people. So at some point, you've got to bind those facts to the real human being to whom they should be attributed. And that's a dangerous and difficult moment. The way that governments have done this for over 100 years is they put a photograph on your passport or your driving license, your identity document. So the use of the face to bind a human being to their approved identity documents, that's well established. Nowadays, everything's happening online. So the task is to make sure that a remote person is whom they claim to be, that they're the right person, that they're the real person, and that they're there right now in the comfort of their own living room, in an untrusted environment, on an untrusted device.
And what are some standard ways of doing this?
So in the beginning, people just used face recognition. You know, biometric matching. Do they look like who they're supposed to look like? The problem is that you can't steal a person's face. People say, "Oh, what happens if I steal my face?" You know,
Sure.
I can reset my passport. I can't reset my face. I have news: you can't steal a person's face, at least not without a scalpel and a lot of blood. But what you can do is you can copy it.
Right.
So the real problem you've got is detecting and preventing the successful use of copies of people's faces, photographs, images on screens, beautiful masks like the 3D death mask that we had made of me for test purposes. My wife absolutely won't have in the house. And those used to be the main attack.
Right.
Today, the attack vectors have become much deadlier because today we're dealing with deepfakes.
And so what kind of threat do deepfakes pose to live identity verification?
Huge. Deepfakes are a different kind of pose a different kind of scale of danger. Why? Because they can be today produced extremely cheaply. They can be produced in so perfectly that today, not tomorrow, today they are indistinguishable to the naked eye, and they can be done on vast scale. You don't need people or objects anymore. You can synthesize these things technologically.
So this must be a huge problem for businesses and governments that need to verify people.
It is a huge problem, and it's becoming much worse month by month. 12 months ago, you still needed quite a lot of money and quite a lot of skill to produce a deepfake, and you could probably see some artifacts.
Right.
Now just in the last year, everything has changed. So in our recent biometric threat report, we showed that one particular use of deepfakes, which is the so-called face swap attack, increased by 700% last year, and it's accelerating still further. Here at Identiverse, we showed a video of a real person and some deepfakes, and the audience was completely incapable of determining which was. The audience split down the middle, 50%, 50% for the two sides, and yet half of Americans in a recent survey thought that they could detect a deepfake safely. Not true anymore. So now when people present online, either to have their identity verified or maybe to authenticate themselves, or just when they turn up on a video conference, there is no longer any reason to believe that you're looking at who you think you're looking at.
I know. It's gotten to the point where you have to see with your own eyes to believe it. You know?
Well, not quite, fortunately. There are ways of detecting and preventing the successful use of biometrics.
And what would they be?
So high quality liveness is a very effective way of preventing deepfakes. The sort of high quality liveness that we deliver for governments and banks worldwide. A solution like this has to be defense in depth. There is no magic bullet. You can't put in place a disk of technology and go, there it is, problem solved.
Right.
Because the world of deepfakes is moving all the time. This is not a static problem, it's a dynamic problem. So on the one hand, you need technology which makes life difficult for the deepfakers and causes them to make tiny mistakes. And then you need systems and processes in the cloud that are continuously watching what they're doing, continuously monitoring what they're doing, continuously detecting what they're doing, analyzing what they're doing, and responding and adapting to what they're doing. And that kind of back-end security system is absolutely fundamental to staying ahead of the deepfakers. We've been very successful at doing so far.
So give me an example of, for example, how you could detect a deepfake live interview.
So at the beginning, and this is a real problem. Let me give you an example of how it's all gone terribly wrong and why your question is so relevant.
Right.
About a month and a half ago, one of the world's largest civil engineering civil engineering design consultants, Arup, had $25 million stolen from them when a financial controller was instructed to make that payment. This is a very cyber-aware company. They're very smart people. So he insisted upon a video conference from the board meeting. And the CEO was there instructing him, and he got permission from all the board members around the table. The attackers had deepfaked every single board member's face. They had deepfaked the CEO.
Wow.
They deepfaked the entire interaction. There was no way that the financial controller could have known that he wasn't dealing with the real board giving him a real instruction to wire $25 million to some thieves.
Wow.
So we're moving into that kind of world. If people like that are vulnerable, everybody's vulnerable. So how can you protect against it? The first is you begin these video conferences. You're going to have to begin these video conferences with an authentication.
Sure.
How can you detect that that is a deep fake? So there are two parts to it. What we do is we introduce an unpredictable element into the scene. We use the screen of the user's device to flash a series of colors which illuminates their face. It's an unpredictable, never repeated sequence of colors. And while their face is being illuminated, we stream video back to our servers where we analyze the reflection of those screen colors from the user's face. The way that it reflects off the face and interacts with the ambient light tells us that we're looking at a live skin-covered, human face-shaped 3D object.
Right.
And the sequence of colors tells us that they're right there, right now. It's a really strange problem that we've set the attackers. It's a tiny eye of a needle that those deepfakers have to jump through.
Right.
We don't give them any feedback at all, so they don't even know what they're shooting for. So they make tiny mistakes. In our back end, we watch them make those tiny mistakes. We watch them experiment. We watch the new techniques that they're using to try to exploit our system, and we learn from them. We study them, we replicate them, and then we retrain our systems to stay ahead. That information asymmetry, the fact that we learn more about their techniques than they learn about ours, is what enables us to stay ahead of the enormous resources that are being applied to this. There are hundreds of groups out on the internet busily working together in a crime as a service architecture to develop ways of defrauding biometric verification and liveness services. The median number of people in these groups is over 1,000. So there's an industry out there busily attacking these sorts of systems. We recently saw a bank in Latin America get attacked by deepfakes 50,000 times in less than a month. Sophisticated, optically perfect attacks.
What kind of attacks were those? Were those,
These were attempts to set up fraudulent bank accounts.
I see. So
there were a number of ways. These techniques are used for a number of attacks. For example, in the financial services sector or in the taxation sector, if you can set up a fraudulent account, you can use that to divert funds, fraudulent funds, to act as an off-ramp into the criminal community.
Very true.
In enterprises, remote workers can 27% of US employees now work fully remotely.
Right.
You've never met these employees.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you know who it is that you've just onboarded into some of your company's most critical systems? If a synthetic identity or a fraudulent employee can be onboarded and given access rights into the enterprise systems, who knows what harm they can do?
Yeah, we just had the same. We just had that happen with North Korean workers working, I guess, in the U.S. tech firms, I believe. It was just all fraudulent and fascinating, really. They had I'll let you talk about that, but it's a really fascinating case. But back to that board meeting. So the attackers faked all the members of the board, and they targeted the one financial controller.
Correct, on a video call.
That's amazing.
Setting up deepfakes is now setting up deepfakes that are almost pixel perfect is now easily doable by means of scores, if not hundreds, of easily accessible packages on the internet.
That's amazing.
People at this show can come to our stand and turn themselves into Mr. Bean just by standing in front of our camera and seeing it. It's as simple as that.
Sometimes I feel I'm already halfway there, but anyway. I'm going to get to some of the questions here. Why should we adopt biometrics for remote identity verification instead of just flashing an ID?
So there's a huge problem which is beginning to emerge. So flashing an ID, the ID can be forged,
of course,
and it frequently is. It can be stolen, and it frequently is. So it is synthetic identity fraud. For example, cost just the unsecured loans industry in the United States last year $2.3 billion, according to the Federal Reserve. We're on the Federal Reserve Bank's list of vendors who can help prevent synthetic identity fraud. So just presenting an ID tells the enterprise very little. It just says they possess something that looks like an ID.
Right.
If you'd like me to replicate your ID, I've got this great Photoshop program that'll do it. So that's no use. Your trust resides in people, not in grainy images of IDs. The real challenge is therefore, so you therefore have to check that you're dealing with the real human being, the person who's entitled to deal
Right.
to cope with this. It goes beyond onboarding. It goes to authentication. Traditionally, the world has been based on SMS and OTP methods. This is now becoming a huge problem because social engineering is making it extremely easy for attackers to steal, to intermediate and capture those SMSs and OTPs by socially engineering the victims,
Right.
and gaining access. Fraud is now in the United Kingdom a bigger source of crime than all other sources put together. So things like OTPs and even authenticated codes are so vulnerable to social engineering.
Yeah.
Phone-based solutions are better until that kid on his bicycle rides up onto the pavement and snatches your phone out of your hand, as happened to me in London a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
The thing about biometrics are they can't be stolen, they can't be shared. And that is a unique and incredibly precious property that enterprises can rely on when they're trying to secure access to their systems or to their services.
So here's the thing about, OTP, SMS, just digital things. It's basically one factor. And these verification methods are using one, maybe two factors. Now, if you're doing biometrics, you have to use a lot of different factors, a lot of different signals and inputs. How many do you really need to get to a confident a confident level of verification?
So let's distinguish people get very bound up in the biometric matching.
Sure.
How detailed do I need to be about the face verification?
Right.
10 years ago, that was a huge problem. That is completely solved.
Really?
Face verification is now between 10 and 100,000 times better than it needs to be to do a really good one-to-one.
Really? Okay.
It's hundreds of times better than a human being. The days in which you'd say, look, I can't really rely upon the face recognition, I'll use a person, are over. If you introduce a person into the loop, all that to back up a face matcher, all that'll happen is you'll measure how good the person is. A study was done about 10 years ago on the performance of passport officers, who are the most trained, the most sophisticated people in matching faces to photographs. They found they got it wrong 10% of the time. Modern systems get it wrong 1 in 100,000. So it's just a different scale. So that is frankly solved problem. The hard problem is not face matching. The hard problem is the liveness. How do you know whether this is a real person and there right now? And for that, we need enormous numbers of signals that we capture from the phone, from its parameters, from the face, from the unexpected the unexpected challenges that we introduce into the scene, our flashing lights, and all those things. All those things have to come together. But they have to come together in a way that is usable and workable for the user.
Right.
It's not very difficult, for example, to produce a system that flashes lights and detects deepfakes, providing you don't mind rejecting good people 20% of the time.
Wow.
But that's not okay. That is unusable.
Yeah.
It's easy to do it in such a way that it works on high-end phones, but not on the cheap $20 phones that the less well-off have. What's really hard is to make it work 95 or 98% of the time, and on any of the 27,000 devices that we have in our database. And that's what's taken us 10 years to do. And that's actually what delivers the usability that government and inclusivity and exclusion of bias that it makes it so attractive to governments.
Well, that's fascinating. But I'm afraid we're out of time. We're very close to it. I've been speaking with Andrew Budd, who's a founder and CEO of iProve. I'm Paul Wagenseal for Cyber Risk Alliance. And you can see all of this, again, at securityweekly.com. /iProveIDV. That's IPROOVIDV. And you can watch this on that channel and also on YouTube. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Identiverse 2024. We are streaming this live from Las Vegas. And guess what? We have amazing interviews all throughout the event. I'm your host. My name is Ron Eddings. And with me, my special guest is Chris Meyer, who is the Senior VP of Sales at IntelliCheck. What's going on, Chris?
Hey, Ron. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for jumping on. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us. I wanted to start by getting to know more about your background or even the things that you do. Like you see so many salespeople, especially at events like this, but
I'm sure a lot of people wonder, what are the responsibilities, especially if someone that's a VP of sales?
Yeah, no, again, thanks, Ron, for having us. So I've been with IntelliTech 9 years. So took over the role of SVP of sales 2 years ago. And really my responsibilities, we're an ID verification company. My responsibilities is everything when it comes to the sales organization. So I lead a team of about 9 to 10 strong other sales reps, and day to day the responsibility is to go out and take care of existing customers through those big relationships we have, but also going out and, working with other, potential customers to help them through their, what they're trying to do and their fraud strategies and how they're going to deploy ID verification in the space.
It's all about being an advisor, a trusted partner. That's what I love about sales, and especially in the cyberspace. I feel like sales is what powers and promotes and gives the opportunity for people to, leverage and adopt these solutions.
Yeah, and you use that word, trusted advisor. I've always said no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Going in, there's not a one solution, especially in this space. There's not one solution fits all. A lot of times it's understanding that customer's unique strategies, what their issues are, what are the challenges they're being attacked with, and helping them come up with what's the right strategy to put in place.
So in what way is IntelliCheck a trusted advisor? Tell me a little bit about the company.
Yeah, so we've one of those companies that have been around for a very long time. We've been around 27 plus years. We got our start defending military bases and federal agencies. Because of that, we were introduced to the DMVs and the organizations the DMVs are part of. We, again, are an ID verification company. So what we do is make sure that ID presented, whether it's in person or whether it's, digital online, is real. And then what we help our customers with is once you can confirm that ID is real, now is there any reason why you should or should not trust doing business with that person? So we've shifted from all the military and federal agencies. Now we work with most of the larger top banks and credit issuers here in the country. Most of the major retailers here in the U.S. use us, and it's because we deploy a very different process of ID verification. We can verify a North American document in less than a second. We do it with such accuracy that it's trusted by law enforcement agencies all across the country. Instead of them calling in for dispatch, they use us in the field.
Stunning.
Yeah.
When I think of financial institutions, the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of identity is fraud. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's a lot of that financial institutions are trying to protect against. So from your vantage point, especially from IntelliCheck, what is the current state of fraud and identity?
Yeah, that's a great question, because right now it's really about this tiptoeing this line of onboarding new customers, because everyone's goal is to try to get as many new customers as they can, but also while keeping the bad guys out. Because of some of the traditional ways of doing fraud prevention, what happens is the criminals are using data that's real data. And so financial institutions or retailers are being forced to utilize that same data for their traditional checks. What it's causing is a lot of issues where someone's really who they say they are, but the strategy says, oh no, we don't trust them. And so you're losing new customers while at the same time they're still letting bad guys who are impersonating customers through the door. So right now it's all about how to deploy the right amount of friction and provide still an amazing customer experience that you're not going to lose customers, but actually help you convert more customers, as you go through the process.
I would love to unpack that a little bit more, right? Like you said, it's about providing some friction. Hopefully it's not experienced by users or customers, but, looking at what can financial institutions do to get around, having fraud in their environment? What is your recommendations there?
Yeah, it's really deploying the right strategies. Again, that this all started years ago with the amount of data that's available on the dark web now through all the data breaches. I mean, just last year alone, there's over 3,000 data breaches, over 350 million records, again, exposed on the dark web. I think this year we all heard about the big carrier, wireless carrier, 73 million records.
Yep.
There's a big healthcare provider that 1/3 of all Americans PII. So it's not really, okay, if our data is going to be leaked online, it's who's going to use it and what are they going to try to do with it. So because of all that data, criminals now have the ability to impersonate someone. All they have to do is go online, the dark web, they buy someone's identity, usually less than $30. They have your name, social security number, date of birth, your account information, balances, and then they order a fake ID that has your info, but it's their picture. And now they're impersonating you to open an account or an access account. So right now for, what we help our clients with is eliminating the friction, first of all, because you can't just rely on the same data sources and the same fraud strategies that were used 5 years ago, because the criminals are using. They know that.
Yeah.
And it's like they have the key to the book, to the test book. They know what's being utilized and they know how to attack it. So we help our customers in a way by providing a frictionless experience that's not using the traditional ID verification, but it also helps them convert more customers. You know, our customers see an increase of anywhere from 20 to 25% increase on new account openings, where most, when they deploy ID verification, are seeing a reduction because they have such abandonment through the process. So we help our customers get more new customers, but we also help them keep the bad guys out at the same time.
Put the friction on the adversary end.
That's exactly right. And that's what we love to say. Hey, if you're going to put friction anywhere, put it on the bad guys.
Yeah.
Because they don't like it when they can't get through.
Right.
So don't put the friction. Don't make your customers feel like bad guys at the end of the day.
When you look at conferences nowadays for cybersecurity or even technology as a whole, one cornerstone is always artificial intelligence. And, you know, speaking of friction, I think that AI reduces friction for many people, including the adversary, but also for us. You know, when you look at things like fraud, how does AI fit into that from an attacker, but also a defender standpoint?
That's, again, a solid point, because this AI is being, you know, it's one of those now catchphrases that everyone's discussing. It's almost, I won't say it's a fear mongering, because it's true. But if you're not relying on just, again, inadequate fraud strategies, AI isn't going to be as impactful. It helps the fraudsters, but it only helps them when you're deploying fraud strategies that they're hoping you deploy. It does allow them to make their job easier, where it used to be, hey, to impersonate someone, they had to order an ID from online and then it got shipped from overseas. Now, granted, they ordered that ID for less than $100, but now they can just literally in their living room have that ID instantly because they have it AI generated where it looks like a valid document. But again, there's strategies to deploy that includes, you know, things with biometrics, not just facial biometrics, but, you know, passive data sets where, hey, where's that transaction taking place? Let us know about the device. Let's know about the IP. Is the customer application showing that, hey, they're supposed to be in Iowa, but it shows it's taking place in Hong Kong?
Right.
The device looks suspicious. The device has a SIM card swap. There's all these things that can be done that even AI can't conquer right now. But again, it's about understanding what's the current process, not only for onboarding new customers, but a lot of times criminals use the, you know, contact call centers of organizations, or they're using ways to make changes to accounts. Well, we have a lot of our clients that they use this for both, for new account opening, but also account takeover attempts, which is growing dramatically. Account takeover is the fastest growing area of fraud in the country, because when you think about new account opening, someone has to go through a credit application process. There's a credit history that's pulled, you know, all that. If it's account takeover, they're just saying, yes, I have an account. And all they usually ask for is your name and your driver's license. And now you have access to someone's account to change email, to change passwords. So that's a much easier path for fraudsters to take, again, if there's inadequate fraud strategies being deployed.
So please tell me that, you know, if someone bought my personal information, my social, my first name, last name, address, is there an additional charge for my driver's license, or is it still at that $30 mark?
So to buy the data, it's very inexpensive for them.
Yeah.
To now be armed with what they need to use that data to impersonate you, that's where all they do is they order an ID, either through AI or through an actual physical. I have a pocket full of fake IDs because we have law enforcement agencies all across the country that use us. These fakes fool law enforcement. They look that good. They scan. They pass the traditional photo upload.
Yes.
All that. And the thing about facial biometrics is, well, if the ID passes and the selfie is just a picture of the criminal, that's going to pass too normally. Yeah. So again, it goes back to utilizing other fraud strategies that are more verifying with more accuracy that ID to begin with is genuine. That's what we do.
So I think anyone that's watching this right now, whether they're a cybersecurity practitioner or, you know, on the fringes of cybersecurity, wants less fraud in their life, in their organization. What's one piece of advice that you'd have for anyone to, you know, get one step better at fraud protection?
Yeah, I mean, what we try to work with our clients is really walking through. First of all, you got to understand what's the root cause of fraud. So much of the time, it's almost like a whack-a-mole approach that organizations deploy where, hey, this is happening, so we just need to implement something to handle that, instead of going back to what's the root cause? Why is this taking place? Yep. Again, I don't think enough education has been, you know, made to the public about where the data breaches, the damage that's being done, how that data is being used. criminals depend on that because they know, hey, you're not utilizing, they know the information they're utilizing, but they also know most organizations are being reactive instead of proactive. When you can sit down with a customer and you can help them create a proactive strategy that's really understanding where's the issue coming from, but then before they get attacked, now you're helping them build strategies that is really building a wall of protection that is critical for them to stop fraud. But at the end of the day, it's also to protect their customers, because when these things happen, the institution or the retailer or whoever it is, they have fraud losses, but there's also a customer who's impacted because someone impersonated them and then did damage to their actual credit, to their actual, account information. That's stuff that, because when that happens with a customer, they have a tendency to leave because they go, no, I trusted you and it didn't work out. There's damage on both sides for these companies.
Looking at something like IntelliCheck, with everything you're describing, it sounds very interesting because, like like I said, we want to decrease fraud and by any means necessary. Sure. I'm sure people have come to you at Identiverse and asked, about your organization. What's typically the aha moment or the moment that people are really sprung into action to say, I need this product?
Yeah, so it's happened multiple times at our booth where everyone in our space, and again, I've done this 9 years for IntelliCheck, so I'm pretty aware of what everyone else does and their story. Everyone else has the same story. We like to show, while we can do all those things, let me show you what we do different. And that's usually the aha moment, because when they go, oh, wait a minute, that was it? Less than half a second is all you needed to make sure that was real or not? That's something they haven't seen before. And that's usually the aha moment when you can get them to watch, and because then they start going, that's all my customer's going to have to do? Yeah. That's a better experience than what the gates, and I almost think of it like the old where, hey, you got to walk through the, the fire pit, you got to go through the rocks that are falling down. That's what most, systems are built on. A lot of protection, but it's a slippery slope for a customer to try to navigate through. We eliminate all that by doing what we do.
Being VP of sales, I'm sure one outcome that you're hoping for out of this conference is relationships, meeting new people, having opportunities come up, outside of that, what are you looking forward to most at Identiverse 2024?
Yeah, it's really been conversations like this and thought leadership. Again, my big belief is, hey, as a whole, criminals are highly organized. I don't think everyone's really aware how organized they are. They're very organized. They're organized with the data they share. They're organized with the strategies that they deploy to attack multiple, organizations. It's really about providing thought leadership and conversation that, hey, we've got to start working together. And again, there's not one solution that's going to solve everything. It's everyone coming together and going, hey, we've got to work together to build strategies where everyone's going to have their own independent strategies. We've got to start being aware of really what's taking place, how we're being attacked, and then how to get ahead of the fraudsters in a proactive approach versus a reactive approach at the end of the day.
I think that's what it's all about. It's all about community. It's all about just building relationships through conversations just like this. Right. For anyone that wants to stay up to date with Chris and IntelliCheck, I got a very special link for you. It is securityweekly.com/IntelliCheck IDV. That's INTELLICHECK IDV. Got the spelling there for you. We would love for you to stay up to date with IntelliCheck and Chris. Chris, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me. Also coming to Identiverse. It was an honor and pleasure to speak to you. And with that, we will see everyone next time.